Against all odds, how humans defeated the invincible alien empire. The first sighting of the invaders was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. From the moment the colossal ships appeared in the skies, the world trembled. The aliens, known only as the Zorith, arrived in ships that defied all known laws of physics. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of, and their military prowess seemed invincible. In a matter of days, entire cities were wiped out. The Zorith didn't ask for surrender, they demanded it. Their cold, emotionless voices echoing through every channel, speaking of inevitable conquest. For months, humanity fought back, but the battle seemed hopeless. The Zorith could manipulate time, bend space, and disintegrate anything they wished. Their weapons were unstoppable, their forces overwhelming. As human resistance dwindled, the leaders of the world convened in secret, trying to find a way to end the invasion before humanity became nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. But the turning point came from the unlikeliest of places, the human spirit. In a hidden research facility deep in the Arctic, a small team of scientists had been studying the wreckage of one of the Zorith ships that had crashed due to a freak atmospheric anomaly. While the wreckage seemed indestructible, they noticed one curious feature: the Zorith's technology was heavily reliant on energy manipulation, specifically drawn from cosmic sources far beyond human comprehension. If humans could somehow exploit this energy or find a way to disrupt it, there might still be a chance. Led by Dr. Alicia Thorne, a brilliant physicist and former military strategist, the team devised a plan to reverse engineer the energy signature of the Zorith's technology. It wasn't just a scientific venture, though; it was a race against time, a desperate gamble. Dr. Thorne and her team discovered that the Zorith's advanced shield technology was dependent on a quantum energy matrix that could be interfered with through the resonance of certain Earth frequencies. The idea was simple yet insane: disrupt the energy flow at the core of the Zorith's shield, rendering their fleet vulnerable. The problem, however, was that this discovery required a device capable of creating the necessary frequency bursts, something that was far beyond Earth's current tech. But Dr. Thorne's team had a trick up their sleeve: an ancient artifact, a relic from Earth's distant past, rumored to possess strange energies that defied all understanding. It was said to have been passed down through generations, safeguarded by a secret order. It was a mysterious object, known only as the Chronos Key. The device could manipulate time and space on a microscopic level, altering the fabric of reality in ways the Zorith would never suspect. The team had to combine cutting-edge science with this arcane object, a feat that seemed impossible. While the scientists worked on their weapon, another battle raged across the planet. The Zorith had begun their final assault, saturating Earth's atmosphere with their invincible weaponry. Entire continents were on the brink of collapse, cities lay in ruins, and humanity's last stand appeared imminent. Governments fell, and chaos reigned, but the human spirit, gritty and unyielding, still flickered. And then, the plan was ready. Dr. Thorne and a small group of military volunteers infiltrated the Zorith's flagship, a gargantuan vessel hovering above the remains of New York City. They had one shot, one moment to deploy the Chronos Key and the frequency-disrupting device. The Zorith were waiting. They knew that humanity had never posed a true threat to their empire. They were prepared for every weapon, every strategy, but they were not prepared for human ingenuity, for the sheer audacity of a species willing to fight to its last breath. As Dr. Thorne and her team moved toward the ship's core, the Zorith launched a final counterattack. Time seemed to stretch and collapse around them, as if the very fabric of reality had begun to unravel. The Chronos Key hummed in Dr. Thorne's hand, its power slowly building. With one final pulse, they unleashed the frequency burst. The Zorith's shields flared, crackled, and then shattered. For the first time in months, the Zorith were vulnerable. Human forces, led by the remnants of Earth's military, launched their final strike. Ships, fighters, and soldiers, armed with weapons now effective against the Zorith, attacked with all the fury they could muster. The tides of war shifted. The Zorith, stunned by the collapse of their invincible technology, fought back ferociously. But humanity's spirit was too strong. Against all odds, the humans fought like never before, each victory a testament to their survival instinct, their refusal to bow to tyranny. In a matter of weeks, the invincible empire fell. The Zorith, overwhelmed and defeated, retreated, leaving behind only ruins and the knowledge that humans were not as weak or insignificant as they had once believed. The victory was not just a military triumph, but a victory of the human will. It was a victory of perseverance, unity, and the courage to defy the impossible. The Zorith had underestimated humanity. They had underestimated the strength of a species willing to fight for its survival, against all odds. The Earth was scarred, but it was free. And as the people of Earth rebuilt, they knew one thing: they were no longer just inhabitants of a small planet in a vast universe. They had earned their place, and if the Zorith or any other empire ever returned, humanity would be ready. The aftermath, rebuilding and preparing for the future. The defeat of the Zorith was celebrated across the globe. Streets were filled with jubilant crowds, and the sound of laughter and cheers echoed through cities that had once been nothing more than ruins. However, as the celebrations died down, the reality of the aftermath set in. The world had won, but at an immense cost. The war had left deep scars, both physical and emotional. Countless lives were lost, entire cities were reduced to rubble, and the Earth's ecosystem had been ravaged by the destructive weapons the Zorith had unleashed. Governments had crumbled, and the very structure of human civilization had been fractured. The task of rebuilding was overwhelming, and resources were scarce. In the years that followed, humanity's focus shifted from celebration to survival. The people of Earth were no longer divided by borders, races, or ideologies. In the face of such a formidable enemy, the old divisions had faded away, replaced by a unified front. Nations worked together to rebuild infrastructure, heal the planet, and bring some semblance of normalcy back to their devastated lands. Dr. Alicia Thorne became an international hero, not just for her pivotal role in defeating the Zorith, but for her vision in the aftermath. She and her team, along with a global coalition of scientists and engineers, spearheaded efforts to repair the damage. They didn't just rebuild, they adapted. The Zorith's technology had left behind a wealth of knowledge, of energy, space, and time manipulation, knowledge that, in the right hands, could help humanity ascend to new heights. One of the first projects was the construction of the Kronos Shield, a defensive system based on the Zorith's energy manipulation technology, but designed to protect the Earth from future threats. It was a massive undertaking, involving collaboration between the best minds from every corner of the planet. The Kronos Shield not only acted as a defense system against potential alien invaders, but also served as a renewable energy source, helping to revive ecosystems and stabilize global climates that had been severely damaged by the war. The rebuilt Earth became a beacon of hope, not just for its inhabitants, but for any who might be watching from afar. Human resilience and adaptability had proven stronger than even the most advanced alien empire. But as the dust settled and Earth slowly healed, another, more pressing question lingered in the minds of humanity's leaders. What if the Zorith weren't the only invaders? The awakening of new threats. The Kronos Shield worked wonders, but it also inadvertently sent a signal into the far reaches of space. In the years following the war, astronomers had detected faint, unusual signals emanating from beyond their solar system. At first, it seemed like a fluke, an echo from the past, but as time passed, the signals grew stronger, more frequent, and unmistakably artificial. The first message came through 5 years after the defeat of the Zorith, and it was simple: we are watching, we are coming. The Zorith may have been defeated, but the universe was vast, and humanity had unknowingly drawn the attention of other civilizations. Some might be peaceful, others might be hostile. The question remained: how would humanity fare in a galaxy that now knew it existed? Dr. Thorne, still at the forefront of Earth's scientific advancements, was among the first to understand the true significance of the message. She realized that the Zorith had been just one empire among many, an empire with an untold history, but not the only one with the power to destroy. In a public address to the newly formed United Earth government, she delivered a sobering message. We are no longer just a small, isolated species on the edge of the galaxy. Our victory against the Zorith has shown the universe that we are capable of incredible resilience and innovation. But we must also prepare for the unknown. We are not alone. The rebuilding and advancement of humanity's technology had been swift, but the time had come to look beyond their planet and prepare for what lay ahead. The formation of the Intergalactic Defense Coalition, IDC. In response to the increasing evidence of extraterrestrial interest, the United Earth government took decisive action. Earth's governments, which had already unified in the aftermath of the war, now formed an intergalactic alliance. The goal was simple: to ensure humanity's safety from any future threats and to foster peaceful relations with any alien civilizations willing to engage. Thus, the Intergalactic Defense Coalition (IDC) was born. It was a partnership between Earth's brightest minds, military forces, and diplomats, all working to ensure the survival and prosperity of the human race. The IDC's primary function was to act as a defense against alien threats, as well as to explore space and make first contact with any non-hostile civilizations. In preparation for the worst, the IDC began developing new technologies, largely based on the knowledge gleaned from the Zorith. They created ships capable of faster-than-light travel, constructed new weapons designed to counteract alien tech, and began training a new generation of diplomats and explorers for intergalactic relations. Yet, Earth's most important task was to ensure that humanity remained united. The Zorith invasion had shown what could happen when humanity splintered, and no one was eager to repeat those mistakes. A new era of exploration. Years passed, and the human race adapted to its new role in the galaxy. The IDC not only defended Earth from alien threats but also ventured beyond, exploring distant worlds, making contact with peaceful alien civilizations, and forging new alliances. The ruins of the Zorith Empire became a symbol of humanity's resilience, a reminder of what could happen if they allowed fear or division to take hold. But the question still lingered: could humanity truly stand against any threat the galaxy might throw at them? The answer was a simple one: humanity had already proven that they could. Against all odds, they had triumphed. And as they gazed up at the stars, they knew one thing for certain: they would never stop fighting for their survival, no matter what the future held. As Earth continued to rebuild and expand, the legacy of the Zorith invasion remained as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. Against all odds, humanity had not only defeated an invincible empire but had also secured its place among the stars. The war was over, but the true journey had only just begun. The Silent War, the secret conflict beyond the stars. As humanity expanded its presence in the galaxy, the Intergalactic Defense Coalition (IDC) proved instrumental in securing peaceful alliances with various alien civilizations. Earth's diplomats, now experienced in handling interspecies negotiations, forged new relationships with races who once viewed humanity as little more than an insignificant speck in the vastness of space. Despite the achievements, the arrival of new threats was inevitable. Behind the scenes, however, a much quieter and more insidious war began. Not every alien civilization welcomed humanity's rise. Some saw humanity's unexpected victory over the Zorith as a harbinger of a new, dangerous force that could disrupt the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. A shadowy alliance of these civilizations, calling themselves the Ether Collective, had begun to quietly coordinate their efforts to destabilize Earth's growth. They believed that humanity, with its unpredictable adaptability and relentless drive, was a threat to the established cosmic order. The Ether Collective's members were not as direct as the Zorith. They didn't attack humanity openly. Instead, they waged a war of sabotage, subterfuge, and misinformation. The IDC's first sign of this secret conflict came when several human colonies on distant planets began to experience strange phenomena. Communications were jammed, colonies were mysteriously attacked, and entire fleets of ships were sabotaged. The Ether Collective had perfected the art of technological warfare, using cloaked ships and interference fields to render human defenses useless. Dr. Alicia Thorne, now a leading strategist within the IDC, became the first to connect the dots. Earth had never truly been safe, not from the galaxy's silent enemies. The Zorith had been just the beginning. The new enemy was more subtle, more insidious, and far more calculated. The first strike, a cosmic coup. A shocking event marked the beginning of the Ether Collective's overt actions. In a remote system on the fringe of human space, the Ether Collective launched a surprise attack on a newly established human colony. The attack wasn't a direct assault on human infrastructure, but rather a methodical eradication of humanity's ability to defend itself. Entire fleets of warships were wiped out in an instant, and the planet was left barren, its colonists either wiped out or taken hostage. The IDC, caught off guard by the sudden and precise attack, scrambled to retaliate. The human fleet mobilized quickly, but the Ether Collective's forces seemed always one step ahead. Their ships had the ability to cloak, hide within gravitational anomalies, and even manipulate light itself, making them nearly impossible to track. For the first time since the fall of the Zorith, Earth found itself in a fight it couldn't immediately win. Dr. Thorne, who had been at the forefront of defending humanity from the Zorith, knew that they couldn't rely on brute force alone. The Zorith had been defeated because humanity had been able to adapt and outsmart them. Now, they needed to do the same again. It was time for Earth to face a new kind of war, one that would take all the ingenuity, determination, and unity humanity had. The rise of the Unseen Warriors. To combat this new enemy, Dr. Thorne and the IDC created an elite division, the Unseen Warriors, comprised of the best minds, engineers, and soldiers. The Unseen Warriors were tasked with countering the Ether Collective's most insidious methods. They would use unconventional tactics, exploiting the enemy's own technology against them. The first mission of the Unseen Warriors was to infiltrate an Ether Collective outpost, armed with a new generation of stealth technology, including cloaking devices and energy shields derived from Zorith technology. They moved silently through space. Their goal: to steal vital intelligence about the Ether Collective's operations and uncover the true nature of their plans. What they found was chilling. The Ether Collective was not a single empire, but a loose confederation of alien races, some ancient, some new, who had been in contact with each other for millennia. They feared humanity's rise because they saw Earth as a catalyst for change in the galaxy. The collective believed that humanity's resilience and technological ingenuity could one day challenge the established order. The truth was that the Ether Collective had been sabotaging humanity's colonies for years, subtly preventing humanity's expansion into more lucrative sectors of space, all while monitoring Earth's progress. The intelligence the Unseen Warriors retrieved showed a shocking revelation. The collective had allies within the IDC itself. Saboteurs, corrupt individuals who had sold out humanity's future, were leaking critical information to the Ether Collective. The corruption within Earth's ranks had been one of the collective's primary strategies to undermine Earth's war effort. The War of Minds. Now, the IDC faced a war not only against a powerful alien threat, but also against betrayal from within. Trust among Earth's military and political leaders began to fray as suspicions grew. The Ether Collective's spies had infiltrated the highest levels of government and military, causing internal chaos. Dr. Thorne knew that the only way to fight back was not through force, but through intelligence and counterintelligence. The Unseen Warriors became the tip of the spear in this new kind of warfare, a battle of minds and subterfuge. They developed sophisticated algorithms to detect hidden patterns in enemy communications, deployed countermeasures to neutralize Ether technology, and waged an information war that would uncover the collective's most secret plans. However, this battle was not without its toll. Several key members of the Unseen Warriors, including some of Earth's brightest minds, were lost in covert missions. With every victory, the cost grew higher, but Dr. Thorne remained resolute. There was no other choice but to win. The final gambit. The final act of the silent war came when the Ether Collective launched a coordinated attack on Earth itself. This time, however, they made a critical mistake. They underestimated humanity's ability to adapt. Dr. Thorne had developed a way to hack into the Ether Collective's cloaking technology, rendering their ships visible for the first time. The IDC, using a new fleet of warships equipped with advanced tracking systems, was able to engage the collective's fleet in a decisive battle. In a desperate gambit, the Unseen Warriors infiltrated the Ether Collective's central command ship, where they planted a virus that corrupted the collective's command systems. With the collective's ships in disarray and its leadership in chaos, the IDC launched a final assault. The Ether Collective, unable to coordinate its efforts, crumbled in the face of humanity's unity and ingenuity. But even in victory, Dr. Thorne knew this conflict wasn't truly over. The Ether Collective might have been defeated, but the galaxy was vast, and humanity had proven itself as both a force of innovation and a beacon of resilience. The war had shown that no matter the odds, humanity would rise above, adapting, evolving, and pushing forward into the stars. And so, with the silence of victory settling over the battlefield, humanity prepared for the next challenge in a galaxy that now knew, without a doubt, that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. The dawn of a new era, the rise of the Galactic Federation. The defeat of the Ether Collective was a monumental victory for humanity, but it was only one chapter in the larger story of Earth's place in the galaxy. The Intergalactic Defense Coalition, IDC, now tested and proven, had become the cornerstone of human unity and resilience. Yet, humanity's rise as a galactic power was not without its challenges. The events of the Silent War had shown the fragile balance of trust in the galaxy. While Earth had emerged victorious, it was clear that the larger galactic stage held more complexities than humanity had yet realized. As Earth rebuilt after the conflict, its leaders recognized that true security could not be achieved solely through military might. With a galaxy full of diverse civilizations, some of which were still wary of humanity's sudden rise, it became clear that Earth needed a new approach, a system of diplomacy and cooperation that could unite the galaxy, prevent future conflicts, and ensure that all species had a voice. Thus, the concept of the Galactic Federation was born, a collective of species and civilizations dedicated to the ideals of peace, mutual cooperation, and shared growth. The Galactic Federation sought to create a unified galaxy where no one race, whether human or alien, would dominate the others. The formation of the Galactic Federation. Dr. Alicia Thorne, now a key figure in both human leadership and galactic diplomacy, was one of the driving forces behind the Federation's creation. Her experience in navigating the complexities of intergalactic warfare and diplomacy had earned her respect among both humans and alien species alike. It was her vision that would shape the future of the galaxy, a vision that transcended the destructive past of the Zorith and Ether Collective. The first step was to establish a neutral council, a body where representatives from all major galactic powers could meet to discuss issues, negotiate treaties, and resolve conflicts without resorting to violence. The Galactic Federation's founding was heralded by the signing of the Astra Accord, a document that laid out the principles of mutual cooperation, respect for sovereignty, and the peaceful resolution of conflicts. The founding species of the Federation included Earth, several peaceful alien races that had previously allied with the IDC, and others who had seen the threat posed by the Ether Collective and sought a new way forward. Among the most prominent of these species were the Volscians, a race of beings who had mastered the art of biological manipulation and had served as valuable allies during the Silent War. The Zilthar, a technologically advanced species with a deep understanding of quantum physics, also became one of the Federation's founding members. The Astra Accord signing took place on a neutral space station called Harmony, located at the convergence point of several star systems. The ceremony was attended by representatives of over 24 different species, each eager to see what the future held in this new era of cooperation. Challenges of unity. However, the formation of the Galactic Federation was not without its struggles. While many species joined the effort in the hope of securing peace, there were still factions within the galaxy that were distrustful of humanity's rapid rise. Some races, especially those who had aligned themselves with the Ether Collective, were reluctant to join the Federation and were still licking their wounds from their defeat. One of the biggest challenges facing the Federation was the Kalari, an ancient and fiercely independent race of nomadic traders and warriors. They had long resisted any form of central governance and viewed the Federation as an attempt to impose order on a chaotic galaxy that had thrived on its own terms. While not openly hostile, the Kalari were a powerful force to be reckoned with, and their reluctance to join the Federation posed a significant hurdle. Additionally, there were remnants of the Ether Collective still lurking in the dark corners of the galaxy. These rogue factions, though scattered and disorganized, posed a continuing threat to the Federation's stability. The Federation was still in its infancy, and its capacity to defend itself from internal threats was limited. A new threat, the rise of the Nihilists. In the midst of these challenges, a new, unforeseen danger began to emerge. A rogue faction of Ether Collective survivors, calling themselves the Nihilists, began to gather strength on the fringes of the galaxy. Unlike the Ether Collective, which had been driven by a desire for control and dominance, the Nihilists were driven by a far darker ideology, the belief that the galaxy was fundamentally flawed and needed to be reset. They viewed all forms of life, human and alien alike, as expendable. and they believed that the only way to bring true peace to the galaxy was to eradicate most sentient species and allow a new form of life to evolve in the wake of the destruction. The Nihilists were led by a charismatic and ruthless leader known only as Vorith, a former high-ranking officer of the Ether Collective who had survived the fall of the old empire. Vorith's goal was nothing short of galactic extinction, a complete annihilation of the current order, with the promise that something greater would rise in its place. To achieve this, he and his followers had begun assembling a new fleet, even more powerful and deadly than anything the Zorith or the Ether Collective had ever fielded. With the Nihilists on the rise, the newly formed Galactic Federation found itself facing an existential threat that could undo everything humanity and its allies had worked for. The Federation had been created to prevent such conflicts, but now, it was about to be tested in ways that no one had foreseen. The call to arms. As the Nihilists grew bolder, striking at Federation colonies and sabotaging trade routes, the Federation was forced to act. Dr. Thorn, now the Federation's chief diplomat, led efforts to assemble a coalition of forces to confront this new threat. However, this time, it would not be just a military effort. The Federation's survival depended on diplomacy, on uniting all the races of the galaxy, whether they were members of the Federation or not, to face a common enemy. In the shadows of this new war, the Unseen Warriors, now an elite special forces division of the Federation, prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. They would infiltrate Nihilist strongholds, uncover Vorith's true plan, and, if necessary, eliminate the leadership that threatened the entire galaxy. But humanity was no longer alone in this fight. The Volscians, the Zilthar, the Kalari, and even some former enemies who had seen the devastation caused by the Nihilists, pledged their support. For the first time in galactic history, a true alliance of species was formed, not just out of survival, but out of the shared belief in a future where peace and cooperation could flourish. As the Federation prepared for the inevitable conflict, one thing was clear: the stakes had never been higher. The Nihilists represented not just a physical threat, but an ideological one. The very fabric of the galaxy, built on the ideals of cooperation and unity, was about to be tested in the crucible of war. And once again, humanity stood at the forefront, ready to fight, against all odds, for a future that could be theirs to shape. The battle for the galaxy had only just begun. The battle for the galaxy, the Federation's last stand. As the Nihilists' forces grew stronger, their campaign of terror spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Vorith's vision of destruction and rebirth began to take form as entire star systems fell under the shadow of his fleet. The Nihilists' deadly weaponry, an amalgamation of Zorith technology, Ether Collective remnants, and their own twisted innovations, gave them an edge that the Federation was struggling to overcome. The Nihilists had no regard for diplomacy, no desire for negotiation. They were out to wipe the slate clean and start anew, no matter the cost. The Federation's leaders knew that a direct confrontation with Vorith and his forces was inevitable. However, the battle would not be fought on a single front. With the galaxy in chaos, alliances would be tested, and humanity's leadership would be put to the ultimate test. The Great Convergence, preparing for war. Dr. Alicia Thorne, now the Supreme Commander of the Federation's defense forces, called upon the unified strength of the galaxy's greatest minds, diplomats, and warriors. The Federation's military capabilities had grown exponentially since its formation, and Earth's scientists had worked tirelessly to harness the full potential of Zorith and Ether technologies. Yet, there was a realization that no single species could defeat the Nihilists alone. A summit was called in the neutral system of Vortis Prime, a planet located at the galactic crossroads, where the representatives of all the Federation's member species gathered. The stakes were clear: if the Nihilists succeeded, the galaxy would fall into an irreversible darkness. The summit's goal was twofold: to unite every species under one banner and to coordinate the Federation's response to the Nihilist threat. Despite the progress humanity had made in unifying the galaxy, old grudges remained. The Kalari still distrusted the Federation's centralized power. The Volscians were wary of Earth's military dominance, and the Zilthar, while supportive, demanded greater autonomy for their species. Tensions ran high, but Dr. Thorne's impassioned speech about the need for cooperation and the collective future of the galaxy won the day. She reminded them all of the shared struggle they had already endured and how much they had accomplished together. the Nihilists' stranglehold, striking from the shadows. The Nihilists, led by Vorith, were not idle while the Federation prepared. They had already begun a ruthless campaign to dismantle Federation strongholds. Their first major move was the destruction of Tessara Station, a vital trade hub that linked dozens of systems. The station's fall crippled the Federation's economy and supply chains, sending shockwaves through the galaxy. Vorith's forces were relentless, swift, brutal, and cunning. Their attacks were precise, disabling entire fleets with crippling electromagnetic pulses that rendered Federation ships immobile before wiping them out. Meanwhile, Vorith himself remained a mysterious figure, rarely seen but always felt. His presence was like a specter haunting the Federation, and his motivations were unclear. He spoke little, but his actions were devastating. His ability to sway some of the galaxy's most powerful leaders to his cause was an indication of the Nihilists' influence. A web of spies, sympathizers, and infiltrators worked from within Federation space to sow chaos and mistrust. The gathering of the fleet. In the face of this mounting threat, the Federation's military coalition began to assemble its largest fleet ever. At the heart of the fleet was the flagship Unity, a massive warship designed with the combined technologies of the Volscians, the Zilthar, and the humans. It was the most powerful vessel ever constructed, brimming with weapons, shields, and advanced stealth systems, capable of withstanding the worst the Nihilists could throw at it. Dr. Thorne personally led the mission to prepare for the final confrontation. With the Federation's resources stretched thin by the ongoing attacks, she focused on consolidating the fleet's position in the neutral zone, just outside Nihilist-controlled space. The strategic goal was to prepare for an invasion into the heart of Nihilist territory. The Federation had intelligence that Vorith had established a stronghold on the Verge, a massive, heavily fortified space station located at the edge of a collapsed star system. It was here that Vorith was believed to be constructing a weapon capable of wiping out entire star systems. The Battle of the Verge, the Federation's last stand. The final battle began when the Federation's fleet entered Nihilist-controlled space and prepared to make the first strike on the Verge. It was a desperate mission, one that would likely determine the future of the galaxy. The Federation had no illusions. They knew they were walking into a trap. The Nihilists had built their defenses around the very thing that could defeat them, the weapon that Vorith had been developing, known as the Null Engine. The Null Engine was designed to emit a devastating energy wave capable of shutting down entire star systems, rendering planets, ships, and weapons useless. Its construction had been Vorith's ultimate gamble. If completed, it would make the Federation's technological superiority meaningless. As the battle unfolded in the cold void of space, it quickly became clear that the Nihilists were well prepared. Their fleet, much smaller than the Federation's, was composed of ships that used advanced stealth technology and devastating EMP weaponry. The Federation's forces were forced to engage in guerrilla warfare, using their superior numbers and coordinated tactics to hold the line. The Unity, with Dr. Thorne aboard, was in the thick of the action, using its advanced stealth systems to disrupt the Nihilist fleets. But just as victory seemed within reach, the true horror of the Nihilist weapon came into play. The Null Engine was activated, sending a pulse that temporarily disabled all Federation ships in its vicinity. For a few harrowing moments, the Federation was left defenseless, and Vorith's forces moved in for the kill. In the midst of the chaos, a group of elite unseen warriors, led by the brilliant strategist Commander Rika, infiltrated the Verge itself. Using their cloaking technology, they bypassed the Nihilists' defenses and made their way to the heart of the station. There, they planted explosives at the core of the Null Engine, knowing that they would not survive the blast. The final sacrifice, a new hope. As the countdown to the destruction of the Null Engine began, Vorith, realizing what was happening, rushed to stop the unseen warriors. In a final confrontation aboard the Verge, Commander Rika and Vorith faced each other, the tension palpable. Rika, knowing she was about to give her life to save the galaxy, made a final, desperate plea to Vorith. "Do you truly believe in what you're doing?" she asked. "Is this what the galaxy needs? Destruction? Erasure of all we've worked for?" Vorith, torn between his ideology and the reality of his failure, paused for a moment, but in the end, his resolve remained. The Nihilist's vision of galactic rebirth was too strong for him to abandon, and in a final act of defiance, he tried to stop Rika. But the unseen warriors succeeded. The null engine exploded, its pulse of destructive energy dissipating harmlessly into the void. The Verge collapsed in on itself, taking the nihilist stronghold with it. The galaxy was saved, but at a heavy cost. The Federation's fleet had been decimated, and many brave warriors had lost their lives. The battle had been won, but the scars of war were deep. The legacy of unity, rebuilding a galaxy. In the wake of the destruction of the Verge and the fall of the nihilists, the galaxy faced both profound loss and new hope. The Federation, though scarred, had emerged victorious, and the destruction of the null engine marked the turning point in the war. The galaxy was no longer on the brink of extinction, but it was clear that rebuilding would require more than just a military victory. It required healing, understanding, and a new kind of unity. A time of healing, the dawn of reconstruction. The destruction caused by the nihilists' war machine had left countless systems in ruin. Entire fleets were decimated, planets were scarred, and millions of lives had been lost. As the Federation began the difficult process of reconstruction, it was clear that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. But it was a road that humanity, along with its allies, was willing to walk together. One of the first priorities of the Federation leadership was to establish a Reconstruction Council, a coalition of engineers, scientists, and diplomats tasked with restoring the most heavily affected star systems. The council would not only rebuild cities and infrastructure but also work toward creating sustainable energy solutions, preventing the kind of devastation that had been wrought by the nihilists' attacks. The Federation's military was not the only force at work. Humanitarian aid, medical supplies, and technological aid flowed into the war-torn regions, bringing hope to those who had suffered the most. Dr. Alicia Thorne, whose leadership had been instrumental in both the war effort and the rebuilding process, now focused her efforts on securing lasting peace. Her role as the chief diplomatic envoy of the Federation was critical in maintaining the delicate balance between member species. Earth's influence was powerful, but Thorne understood that true peace would not come through force. It would come through dialogue, understanding, and shared goals. In the immediate aftermath of the war, a summit was held on Earth to reaffirm the Federation's ideals and ensure that no single species would dominate the others. The summit's message was clear: the Galactic Federation would stand as a collective force, with all species contributing equally to the future of the galaxy. Humanity's role was no longer solely that of a military power, but of a symbol of resilience, cooperation, and the possibility of change. The rise of new threats, the shadows of the past. While the Federation worked to rebuild and restore balance to the galaxy, there were still lingering shadows from the past. Though the nihilists had been defeated, remnants of their ideology remained, spreading through isolated sectors. Small, rogue factions, once loyal to Voritha's vision, began to regroup. These nihilistic ideologies, rooted in fear, destruction, and the belief that the galaxy had to be reset, continued to echo in the dark corners of the universe. Some of these remnants had become radicalized groups, hiding in the far reaches of space, still pushing for their destructive goals. Among these factions was the Silent Order, a radical group that had secretly funded and supported the nihilists. Unlike the nihilists, who had wanted to reset the galaxy, the Silent Order believed in using the chaos of the galaxy to establish a new order, one in which they held absolute control. This shadowy group worked in the background, undermining the Federation's efforts and stirring unrest in systems that were already fragile. Meanwhile, the Federation itself faced challenges from within. While most species embraced the ideals of cooperation, some still struggled with the reality of shared governance. The Kalari, for example, had grown discontent with the Federation's influence in their territory, and whispers of rebellion were starting to rise. There was also the question of the Volscians, whose people were not fully integrated into the Federation. Despite their pivotal role in the war, their vast knowledge of biological manipulation and quantum sciences made them valuable allies, but their desire for autonomy put them at odds with the Federation's centralized structure. For Earth, the rebuilding process was also an opportunity to explore the stars once more. The war had brought humanity's military might to the forefront, but now, with the threat of the nihilists behind them, humanity began to focus once again on exploration, discovery, and expansion. New colonies were established on distant worlds, and humanity's understanding of alien technologies deepened. The idea of a galactic community where all species worked together toward common goals became a powerful unifying vision. A new generation of leaders. As the galaxy rebuilt, a new generation of leaders began to rise to prominence. Young diplomats, scientists, and warriors who had grown up in the shadow of the Great War were now taking the reins. They had never known a galaxy without conflict, but they also knew the cost of war and the value of peace. One of the most promising new leaders was Commander Rika's daughter, Saris Rika, a brilliant strategist in her own right. Saris had grown up hearing stories of her mother's heroic actions during the war, and her natural aptitude for military strategy and diplomacy quickly earned her a position of leadership within the Federation. Though still young, Saris was already making a name for herself as a fierce advocate for peace and stability. Her mother's legacy would guide her, but Saris was determined to forge her own path in this new galaxy. Another key figure in the Federation's future was Dr. Thorne's protégé, Liran Kale, a young scientist who had played a pivotal role in the development of the Federation's new energy technologies. Liran's work in the field of sustainable energy and quantum mechanics promised to revolutionize the galaxy's infrastructure. His innovations were seen as crucial to preventing future resource conflicts and ensuring that all species had access to the energy they needed to thrive. The new era of exploration and diplomacy. As the Federation continued to stabilize and grow, humanity found itself at the center of a new age of galactic exploration. The Federation's Exploration Division, now a more collaborative and inclusive force, began to map out uncharted regions of space. These expeditions would not only open up new frontiers for resource extraction and colonization but also promote further diplomacy and alliances with uncontacted species. The Stellar Initiative, a new program spearheaded by Dr. Thorne and other key Federation leaders, was established to promote peaceful exploration and foster relationships with new civilizations. The initiative focused on discovering new forms of life, sharing knowledge, and ensuring that the galaxy's resources were used responsibly. However, the galaxy was vast, and no matter how strong the Federation became, it was impossible to predict what other unknown forces might be lurking in the distant reaches. The Federation's true test would come not from the battles of the past, but from the challenges of the future, the unknown dangers, the unexpected allies, and the potential for new threats that could emerge from the dark corners of space. The end of one war, the beginning of another. As humanity and its allies looked toward the stars, they understood that their future was not guaranteed. Peace was a fragile thing, and while the Federation stood as a symbol of unity, it was not invulnerable. The galaxy had been reshaped by war, but now, the greatest challenge would be ensuring that it did not fall into the same cycles of violence and destruction. The future of the galaxy, however, was no longer in the hands of a single species.